Hello everyone, it's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film. And we're almost done the 1940s in 2020 Ford land, where non-stop John Ford all year. But we're in kind of peak area of some of his films, which has been exciting. And joining me for back-to-back weeks is my wife Jess. Jess, thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Jess is not wearing a yellow ribbon,
No,
but this film we were
color.
talking about is she wore a yellow ribbon, and we'll get to that in a minute. But if you haven't tuned in before, we have 3 segments. We have our first segment, which is coming attractions for July 12th that weekend, and then we'll be getting into our feature film, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, and then we have some recommendations for you. Getting started with July 12th, Apple has a new film coming out that looks like a fake movie, and that is Fly Me to the Moon, starring Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. There's some smaller things, like a new documentary about Powell and Pressburger's filmography, produced and narrated by Martin Scorsese. Coleman Domingo's Sing Sing coming out. But Jess and I are both excited for the same movie. And Jess, what movie is that?
Longlegs.
Longlegs. Why are you excited?
It looks spoopy.
It does look spoopy. The trailer for this
more than spoopy. It's probably scary.
The trailer for this is terrifying. And from what I heard from people is that this movie is terrifying. And it's terrifying enough that they cast Nick Cage as a serial killer.
Good for them. They finally tapped into that unhinged vampire's kiss.
But like this
potential.
They do such a great job of hiding him in the trailer. And Osgood Perkins, who's directing this film, has a history of making very uncomfortable and unnerving cinematic experiences. And from what I can tell, this sounds like his masterpiece. So I'm so ready for Micah Monroe, who's also a really underappreciated actor, who's starring quite a few strong horror films herself. And taking the lead on this as this FBI agent and trying to
Lady FBI agent. The point in the trailer.
I know. Are you scared being a lady FBI agent? Yeah, you should be.
Yeah. I mean, good for her. Always hot tip, always answer kids honestly.
Yep, there you go. Yes, this movie feels like it's the new Silence of the Lambs. We'll just have to see what kind of serial killing Nick Cage does.
I'm gonna say violent.
Sounds very old school, Old Testament, religious kind of shit. So, it's going to be creepy, I can guarantee it. So yeah, we're looking forward to Longlegs, which honestly 2024 is looking to be a big year for horror. It's been a really impressive year.
Real life and fiction.
You want to be scared everywhere.
Hooray!
But shifting gears into our feature film of the week, which is She Wore a Yellow Ribbon.
She did.
She did.
She does.
This film is about Captain Nathan Brittles on the eve of retirement takes out a last patrol to stop an impending massive Indian attack encumbered by women who must be evacuated. Brittles finds his mission imperiled. And to give you a little bit of background, Technicolor. This is a gorgeous Technicolor film. John Wayne was actually aged up 20 years to fill this role. You could tell. They had him grow a mustache and he had gray.
And he was wearing readers.
Yes. He had those cheaters. This is the second film in John Ford's unofficial Cavalry trilogy, which will wrap up with Rio Grande, which we'll have in a couple of weeks.
That tracks.
This was a $1.6 million budget, the most expensive Western of all time at that point, and it actually came in under schedule and under budget. So I wonder if it was like a $2 million budget, and they're just, John Ford just like, yeah, I could do this for less. I don't need it. This is named after a popular military song, which they do play, for sure. This was shot in Monument Valley, and you can tell. It's absolutely, like, just
He loves Monument Valley.
Sure does. Visuals were based off of Frederick Remington's paintings. So there's very specific shots that were supposed to be there. This is one Best color cinematography, because at this point they still had 2 Oscars for cinematography, 1 for colorized films and 1 for black and white.
Makes sense.
Now, John Ford had no idea who he wanted to actually cast in this movie. He didn't think John Wayne was a good fit. He didn't want him for the movie. Then he saw Red River, and I quote, said, "Wow, this big son of a bitch can act." And decided to give John Wayne this opportunity, because this role certainly is one that has a lot of emotional weight to it. And we'll talk about that. And this was a year John Wayne was nominated for Best Actor, but not for this movie. John Wayne even said, "I should not have been nominated for the other one. I should have been nominated for She Wore a Yellow Ribbon." He was nominated for Sands of Iwo Jima. So, rah, war movie.
As long as it wasn't Genghis Khan. That's much later.
He's still lean, despite the fact that they made him look old.
He's tall, he's long. Shaped like a 2x4.
Yep, and this film stars quite a few big names. Obviously, we have John Wayne here. Joanne Drew plays our female lead. We have John Agar and Harry Carey Jr. fighting over her.
Classic.
We have Ben Johnson, who is like the old Confederate soldier of the group. Victor McLaughlin, who keeps popping up in John Wayne films.
Called him out right away.
Yep, and he certainly has some fun, does a little bar brawling. We'll talk about that in a minute. And George O'Brien, who is an early John Ford star, plays one of the older soldiers that we meet later in the film. But, Jess, what were your general thoughts on She Wore a Yellow Ribbon?
I thought it was a beautiful film. It looked great. I was momentarily happy to see actual Native Americans, and then they have no depth or background or anything, very stereotypical, but they weren't in any kind of brown face.
Correct.
So, minor tally there. I was impressed with John Wayne in this. You know, I'm not necessarily a John Wayne fan, and by that I mean I'm not, but
yes, 100%.
He really, he played the part of an old, grizzled, emotional man well, I think. I mean, he cries at one point, and I was like...
They're shedding some tears in this movie.
I said to Shane, do you think John Ford took him off camera and punched him in the stomach to make him cry, or do you think that was organic?
He probably just emotionally abused him. He
really did. He bullied him.
Yeah, so...
I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but, that's what I was wondering about. But I thought it was beautiful in a lot of ways. Problematic still in some, but... I didn't know what was up with that guy that was just... I get the love triangle thing. Do I think you needed it? No. As usual, no. But dang, they were feisty with each other. They were basically constantly like a cockfight the whole time. Like as soon as
until
you put them
John
in
Wayne
presence,
had to finally be like, "There's a dead man over here. Put yourselves together."
He was sentimental in a lot of ways, though. He really... Don't see him like that a lot.
It's one of those it's very interesting watching this film after watching Fort Apache, which is the first film in this trilogy of cavalry films, because that film actually had a complex look at Native Americans. This film, not so much. There is a moment where John Wayne's character tries to negotiate.
I did like the 2 old guys talking to each other.
Yeah, and that worked, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
It was the only moment of trying to add some dimensions to the situation. It wasn't...
Well, it finds commonalities, because they're old dudes commiserating about how young people don't listen. And I said to Shane, I'm glad that that's still across time and cultures, old people complaining about not being listened to.
So that was an interesting added layer to it. But in general, the biggest highlight of the Native American characters in this were brutally murdering some dudes. Guy tried to blackmail him, gets shot right in the chest with an arrow, and then they were just playing around with one of them, flipping him on the fire, which was
Look, that first guy had it coming.
That first guy did have it coming.
He was price gouging.
He was a piece of shit, and just whoosh. So
He humored him for a little bit. He was playing with him.
I don't think that this is as bad as most Westerns at the time, or even earlier John Ford movies.
Yeah, they go into the culture a little bit. I thought that was interesting, where they're looking at the arrow to decide like where it came from. I was interested in that.
Which they did add some interesting dimensions of like acknowledging like they aren't just this monolith of people. Like there's different tribes
and
that
even
act
within,
in different ways.
Exactly. Within the nation, they're talking about the dog soldiers versus.
In the beginning and the end, they have like this narration that comes on and adds some. It's very old, like old Hollywood kind of thing to be like, we need this omnipresent narrator to come in and just drop some information on you to begin the movie. Yeah, so giving that context, which is interesting because John Ford made a film, Fort Apache, that is like the truth behind that kind of experience, that story. Obviously fictionalized, but like it's the truth and deals with the fact that like people lied to like build up the story. So I thought this was an interesting follow-up to that because it kind of like leans heavily into the mythos of Custer's Last Stand and stuff like that. So outside of that, John Wayne is fantastic in this film. And there's moments of like, he has that swaggering John Wayne-ness still, but he walks a little slower. He walks a little more careful.
Doing one more job before retirement. I know that's a trope.
And then like he's a little flirty with Joe Andrews' character because like he's trying to be like the dad of the group who like 100% knows these two soldiers are fighting over her affections, and then he just slips on in there. It's like, that ribbon for me.
Classic dad. Classic grandpa. My grandpa was hammy like that too.
He definitely gets that vibe well, and like he has a fun dynamic with Victor McLaughlin's character, including setting him up to get arrested at the end so that he doesn't have to do any more work until he retires and turns into this actually really fun slapstick fight of like he just manhandles a whole bunch of people.
There's not many people he couldn't.
Well, yeah, because like Victor McLaughlin is
like a brick shithouse.
Big, strong, drunken Irishman at the end of in this movie, and just like that's the character that he's been playing in a lot of these.
The stock from which you are descended.
Like these post World War II westerns from John Ford, like Victor McLaughlin and Ward Bond are like sprinkle them in here. And
you need a big guy who's comedic relief.
Exactly, and Victor McLaughlin plays it really well, and John Wayne plays that whole situation off well. But like, there's a scene where like he's talking to his dead wife, which that scene in particular is gorgeous. The sunset.
She was young too. I mean, it was subtle, but you see, she was like 34 years old. Yeah. I mean, and he's got to be in his 60s in this. So
like, it's been years since she passed away. And him having that moment there was actually really emotional, and John Wayne did a great job with it. There's the scene later where he breaks up the to-be fight between the two young men, and he's just like, there's a man dead over here. Yeah. And, like, you really feel that. And then his retirement, where they give him, like, his retirement watch, is, like,
he
tears up. And you're just like...
He gets his readers out. And
damn. Which, yeah, he looks like a grandpa, just whipping his readers out.
Yep.
It's just a really great performance, and like that whole conversation with the older Native American character, too, is fun, dynamic. This is seriously, like, I 100% was like, The Searchers, 100% John Ford's best performance. She wore yellow ribbons pretty high up there, too.
For John Wayne,
Yeah, in particular. The romantic love triangle thing, it just kind of feels like it's there. I think the pressure to end it was more meaningful than spending all the time building it up. Because it was like this young man supposed to be taking over this lieutenant, and John Wayne has to put him in his place and be like, stop with the crap. And like that...
It's true, you're in charge of people's lives.
That point, I think, was important. And I don't know if it would have been there without the romantic thing, but like... The fact that, like, I think it's just a greater context of, like, yeah, there's women and children in these situations, and that's kind of why I feel like it's there. And also, it's old Hollywood, so you had to throw some kind of romance in there.
For ladies.
Yeah, it was the same thing with Fort Apache with Shirley Temple's character and stuff like that. It's just, like, they're there for cross demographics.
Gotta check those boxes.
Gotta check those boxes. I did really like Ben Johnson's character. It added an interesting layer post-Civil War, that, like, Union, Confederate kind of dynamic.
And they're going across those lines.
And Ben Johnson is a really talented actor. Shane, The Last Picture Show. And I enjoy seeing him. This, I think, is the second John Ford movie he's popped up in so far. He's a really talented actor, so, like, this has a great cast. Harry Carey Jr.'s there again.
He's a little goofy.
He's a little goofy. He's definitely getting cuckolded.
Oh my god!
Like,
was he the one yelling in the beginning when she came?
He was the one riding the carriage that's like, we're going out for a picnic.
The guard definitely was, like, into that, though. You can see when she's sassing him back, like, and it's probably the actor trying not to laugh, but you could just see that he's kind of like...
Yeah. And then this film has some really great action. There's one particular sequence with Ben Johnson trying to get away from a group of Native Americans, and he does, like, a jump over, like, a bit of a gap in the cliff there, and, like, that was exciting.
Equestrianism. There's some good horse riding.
Yeah, the stunts that they actually did on horseback in this movie was really impressive.
They were lucky to have those horses, because some of those, if they weren't so sure-footed, they would have just eaten crap.
Well, and there's a couple of moments where it was a simple, we need to get over this rockier terrain, but, like, they had this moment where this carriage ran up this incline. It's just like, that's a crazy stunt to be doing just for, like, we're just trying to move along.
Yeah. And I mean, it's realistic, though.
It's realistic and it's impressive. And then the final kind of confrontation with the running of their horses and running the Native Americans' horses out and then making them walk. Like, that whole entire sequence of, like, seeing all those horses running through, like, that was a big set piece. And, you know, John Ford was a fantastic director, really knew how to shoot action.
There's a little bit of sensitivity there, too, because he specifically tells them not to stay up on them because they're proud and they don't want to walk. Like, that's a walk of shame for them. It was interesting to me that he was like, don't follow them too close now, you hear?
Well, and I think that says a lot to Brittle's character of, like, this is a man who's been out here a long time. He knows the people, he knows the land, and he understands that.
He seems to speak the language, too, because he volunteered as an interpreter, which I thought was really interesting.
Him desperately trying to be like, I need this one last job. I need a...
Well, he doesn't want to be put to pasture yet.
And I don't, on some level, that pride thing, but I think he legitimately was like, I need to stop this massacre from happening.
Yeah, he cares. You can sense that he cares.
So, this is a really quality John Ford film. This is, I think, when I was ranking, it's my number 9 out of 58 that I've
Top 10.
gotten through.
Top 10, baby.
Top 10. It's interesting because after the next couple, through the rest of the year, there's only a few, like, big name John Ford films left, and it's The Searchers and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Cowboys is not a John Ford film.
Ooh.
It is a John Wayne film.
It's not John Squared.
Which I'm really excited to watch, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, because I haven't seen that one.
I haven't seen it either.
And that's one of his best ones.
Maybe I did a while ago.
And that's considered one of his best films. And some of my friends who don't even like Westerns, who have watched it, said it was pretty darn great.
Rude of them, but okay.
I am certainly one of the main Western fans in my group of cinephiles that come onto these shows and stuff like that. Maybe that's one of the reasons that getting people to do some of these John Ford films. But, Jess, do you have any other thoughts for She Wore a Yellow Ribbon?
No, I think I talked a lot. The dog actors they better have been paid well. They were great.
Yeah, there's that one particular dog who's just, like, laying there.
Yeah, I thought he was dead. I was like, oh, that's so cute. He's so laid back. And then after a while, he just didn't move at all. I said to Shane, I'm like, is he dead? And then eventually...
Victor McLaughlin.
Yeah,
was
he
like,
pets him.
And he's just like,
moves
what a good dog.
He does a big stretch and then goes back to sleep.
Now, next week, Jess will also be joining me for my first film of the 1950s for John Ford, which is When Willie Comes Marching Home.
We're almost within our parents' lifespans.
Still have a couple more months for that, Jess.
I know.
Probably October.
Oh, okay. Happy Halloween.
Once
Your
we get to
parents
the
are getting older.
1960s. Oh my god. But, wrapping things up here, we have our last segment, which are some recommendations, and Jess wants to recommend you something weird.
I do. It's not Bluey.
It's not
Although you
Bluey.
probably should still. But I'd like to recommend Kinds of Kindness if you like Yorgos Lanthimos, and if you don't, sit outside the theater and just watch people's reactions, because, like, I really enjoyed the one guy in the theater that kept laughing out loud, and, like, nobody else was laughing except for me and him, because I'm guessing that they didn't know what they were in for, but it was really funny how, like, I think it was supposed to be funny, but I guess people were just like, what?
There is a couple over our shoulder who probably looked around our age, maybe younger or so, but, like, I was really wondering, like, is this a date movie, or are they, like, actually, like, cinephiles?
Yeah.
Because, like, Kinds of Kindness is not a date movie.
No. And, like, even some of the older, like, middle-aged to, like, probably, you know, early
They probably saw
70s.
AMC class,
Yeah.
like, they saw, like, the
cinema or whatever.
the, whatever, the... I'm trying to remember what AMC's label is for, like, hey, look, this is a prestige film. And no, it was weird-ass shit.
There was, I like the guy, when I left the theater, though, I made eye contact with that guy, and I forget what he said. He said something along the lines of, like, that was something.
Well, the one guy walking out, which just had a giant grin on his face.
Yeah,
like,
he was the one.
He had such a great time.
I think you weren't out. Yeah, he made eye contact with me. We were the first ones out of the theater, and he was like, that sure was something, and he was laughing, and I said, it always is, and he was like, uh-huh.
It is
he got it.
Weird, effed up, hilarious experience, told in 3 stories.
What a time.
Of desire and control.
No exposition. None. You have no idea what's happening most of the time.
Good
Probably
luck.
60% of each story.
And Emma Stone dancing was 100% worth it.
She killed it. She really, good for her.
And they didn't make us wait for Sweet Dreams either.
No, that's right away.
Right off the bat in the credits.
They do make you wait a little bit. They jiggle the balls a bit when it comes to the weird sex stuff. You gotta wait.
But you know it's coming.
Oh, it does at some point. Yeah, you knew it was. It just kind of was like, I knew it too. I had a sense, but...
There you go. Now,
what a time.
My new film that I'm recommending is The Devil's Bath. And this is a new horror film from... It's a German-Austrian film.
Does she sell the bathwater on the internet?
There's no internet in 1800s.
Wow.
Takes place in the middle of the woods.
How come I didn't watch this?
Because I was watching it while you were still asleep when we were on vacation in North Carolina. So it is a dark, ominous... And my mom wasn't up yet.
I was gonna...
It was a dark, ominous film. It had a lot of atmosphere. It had a lot of guilt. That deep religious guilt. Love that.
Catholic or otherwise? Presbyterian, maybe?
Some kind of Christian guilt.
Presbyterian.
Putting people up for show for when they do bad things, and you have to decapitate them as punishment.
Public.
Yep. Public execution.
Wow.
And just like chilling them out there in the woods.
Old school.
And the way that people celebrate after those executions, though, too.
I mean, they used to bring their little, like, dab. They would dab your little neck stump.
Oh, yeah, they're catching in cups and stuff like that.
That's why...
it was wild.
Was it Louis the 17th? They just found his heart somewhere. Someone was like, I would love to have a child's heart.
So, in the end, it is definitely one of those atmospheric, unnerving kind of horror films where it's a descent into madness kind of thing.
I'm probably already there.
There you go. Off the watch list, Billy Wilder's 1954 rom-com Sabrina, which had Humphrey Bogart and William Holden and Audrey Hepburn. I just did an episode of Wasteland Talks with my buddy Adam. So that's a classic review coming in a couple days after this video comes out. But it is sassy, it's funny, it's a good old school kind of rom-com. And the kind of rom-coms I enjoy, not to
watch with your mom.
The same goddamn movie over and over and over again that we get today. Oh no, I feel like parents would enjoy this one.
Grandparents would probably enjoy it.
Billy Wilder is one of the greatest screenwriters of all time and director, so certainly worth a watch. And then one of my movies that I rewatched yesterday before recording was Oldboy. This is a dark, demented film. It has
People love it, though.
incredible action. This is like the modern Korean film that people absolutely love. Park Chan-wook delivers such a thrilling and demented kind of movie. The action is intense and thrilling. That hallway fight scene is incredible. And then the whole concept of like this man was kidnapped, put in a room for 15 years and then released, and then trying to figure out who did this to him, and the revelations of who this young woman who's been helping him has been, and the revelations on why this all happened to him in the first place is effed up. It is effed up. Let's just put it that way. So if that sounds like it's not your kind of thing,
Don't watch it.
don't watch it. But that is another episode of Welcome to the Wasteland. That's a wrap. Jess, thank you so much for coming on, and she'll be back next week.
Pinch hitting.
Well, this one actually...
I signed up for these?
Yeah. You signed up for this one and next week. She filled in for last week. But anyway.
I watch them all anyway.
Yeah. Thank you all for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.